Today I want to talk to you about a couple common issues that happen when you're shading. So first I want to talk to you about smudging. So smudging is where you rub your finger back and forth to blend out any of the shading that you've done. So one of the main reasons why we don't want to smudge is because it makes it really hard to erase any shading that may be incorrect or any errors or mistakes that we've made. This is because of the oils on your hand being transferred onto the paper and being worked into the paper, making it hard to remove any of the shading. The next thing I want to talk to you about is a scratchy texture. If you're shading like this is a common issue that happens when you are shading with the very tip of your pencil. So an easy way to fix this is to actually just shade on the side of your pencil. And this will allow you to have a smoother texture, and it will also make it easier to blend. The next issue is another common issue, which is a blotchy texture. Now, in this specific example, I'm focusing on areas that may be too dark. This happens when you are shading and you accidentally apply a little bit too much pressure in these concentrated areas. This is an easy mistake to fix. You're going to need your kneadable eraser. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little piece of this kneadable eraser and kind of shape it into a point. Now I'm going to use the kneadable eraser and lightly blot the areas that may be too dark. I'm going to do this until the areas start to melt into the value that surrounds it. So now that we talked about blotchy texture that happens when you shade too dark, we're going to talk about what happens on the opposite end, and this is when you leave a space blank or you don't shade it. So sometimes when you're shading, you can accidentally miss an area, and this happens all the time. So what you want to do before you move on to a section is you want to get in the habit of scanning to see if you've accidentally missed an area. And if you did, that is totally fine. Just make sure you go back and lightly shade that value back in. Now, you want to be very careful not to overdo it and shade too dark. So you're going to carefully take your time and blend that area so that that light area or an unshaded area just kind of melts right into the value. The next common issue I want to talk to you about is overlapping. So overlapping happens a lot when you're shading just one value, but you're accidentally overlapping in one area. So if you have large areas that are the same value, this commonly happens. And all you need to do is erase as much as you can out of that area, or use your kneadable eraser to blot that area until it essentially melts right into the value. It just blends right into the background. The next issue I want to talk to you about is not blending your transitions enough. So this is a very easy fix. Typically what I do is I pick a value. So right now I'm picking a darker value, and I start with very light pressure and I gradually lighten my pressure up until I meet the next value. So I'm easing up on the pressure gradually, which then creates a gradient to the next value. And this is how you can create a good transition or a gradient starting from one value moving to the next. The next thing I want to talk to you about is indentation or creating grooves in your paper. Now, this happens often when you are heavy handed. So, this is where you draw a little bit too hard or with too much pressure, and you actually physically create a groove in the paper. Now, the reason why this is an issue is because you will never be able to repair the area. You won't be able to conceal it very well. And this is because you are altering the physical state of the paper or creating a line within the paper. So, the best way you can avoid this is by sketching very light with light pressure and essentially applying barely any pressure at all. Just enough that you can see what you're sketching and that you can easily erase those lines.